Hello everybody, it's me again, Jack Gyllenhaal, back again with another video. And even though that I'm super famous and everybody in the world practically knows me, I don't know you. So hi, it's nice to meet you. So, actors. You know them, you love them, you hate them. Pretty sure they hate themselves too.
Kill myself.
And lately, they've been on my mind. After watching the 2024 Oscars and seeing Timothée Chalamet being put on blast for some reason by everybody on national television, I got curious and wanted to find out what his first movie was. And I was surprised to find out that it was Interstellar? Like, huh? I loved that movie. How in the world did I not notice him? He was right there. But after looking a bit more into his filmography, it turns out Interstellar wasn't his first movie, but instead was a comedy drama called Men, Women, and Children, which I thought was pretty interesting and a little upsetting. But that got me thinking. Every actor, no matter how great they are, had to start from somewhere, and I want to know where that somewhere was. And then rank them on a tier list. I'm sorry. I genuinely think I might have a problem. I've collected 12 actors and actresses and watched all of their very first roles. And note, very first roles, not first major role. So we're gonna be talking about some films that you probably never knew existed, and some films that probably shouldn't exist at all. And even though that I'm watching each movie in its entirety, I'll be ranking each actor based on their performance, not the movie itself. Oh yeah, no TV shows. Just because I would have to watch an entire series of a show that I probably won't have any investment in. And also, no voice acting. Even though that I think that it takes just as much skill to be a voice actor, I'm not counting it because acting isn't just verbal. It's a physical performance. I have to see them act for this ranking. Jeez, this intro's already long enough. Okay, I'm not gonna waste any more time here. Let's get started with everybody's favorite, Jack Black.
Big ol'
Oh, these dudes? They're the villagers! Chicken jockey!
Before everybody knew him as Steve, aka the trigger for every bomb that goes off in your local movie theater,
Chicken jockey!
he was Thomas Jacob Black. I can't believe his name is Thomas. A guy that was born into an entire family full of aerospace engineers and scientists, and he was the only one who pursued entertainment for his career. That's still super hard to believe. How in the world did someone like Jack Black come from a family like this? Now, a lot of Zoomers, like myself, might remember his earliest role being Mr. Flynn from School of Rock, but his first ever film was actually a satirical mockumentary film called Bob Roberts, back in 1992. Bob Roberts' main plot circles around the campaign of its title character, Bob Roberts, an extremely popular as well as hated Republican candidate who was running for senator of Pennsylvania. The film is very much of its time, talking about the political landscape at the time, having a message of how manipulative public perception is and how politics shape our country and society. It's a film that's trying to say something, but honestly, I really couldn't care less. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I think that this movie could have been better as a comedy, with Bob Roberts being this over-the-top villain that is somehow still popular with his audience. But let's talk about Jack Black. Jack Black plays Roger Davis, a big fan of Bob Roberts. He shows up sporadically throughout the film, getting more and more obsessed with Bob Roberts, turning into a borderline cultist at the end. Yeah, not really the type of role that you would see Jack Black of all people playing, but honestly, he does a pretty good job at it. He plays a character who clearly can't express their emotions well. His crash outs against any hate towards Bob Roberts is sold pretty well. And even though that he's mainly known for comedy, and, you know, being Jack Black, he actually plays a very convincing extremist. However, the one thing holding him back is his screen time. As said before, he shows up pretty sporadically throughout the film, so we don't get much of his acting to actually analyze. And, unfortunately for me, this is going to be a reoccurring problem in this video. But overall, a very strong start here. I think Jack Black is coming in hot in B tier. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was an actor that defined a generation. And then another generation. And then another. And then another. Yes, I like cowboys and aliens. Get over it. It's peak fiction. And the actor that made that all possible was none other than Harrison Ford. Undeniably an untouchable American icon, Harrison Ford is still one of the most recognizable faces in all of Hollywood. I mean, if you're still getting cast in major projects when you're 82, then it's safe to say that the industry still thinks you're lucrative. But before Indiana Jones or Star Wars, his very first movie was American Graffiti from 1973, which, fun fact, was directed by George Lucas, even from the very beginning. George had him in his grimy little hands. American Graffiti is a coming-of-age story that takes place in 1962 in Modesto, California. The story's events happen in the span of just one night, when a group of friends all split up from a diner. And I'll just say it here, this movie doesn't really have a plot. It's more like George Lucas just took a bunch of nostalgic parts of his early life and made a compilation of it. The movie is divided up into a series of different escapades that our characters go on, that being relationship drama, picking up girls, or getting caught up in street gangs. Oh yeah, I also want to mention that while I was watching this movie, my dad was watching it with me and was geeking out seeing all these actors that he knew and I didn't recognize because I was too young. Okay, that makes my dad sound very old. I'm sorry, Dad. Anyway, on to Harrison. He plays Bob Felfa, a street racer who serves as the antagonist in John's story. John is one of the main characters, by the way. He's depicted as kind of a creep, and I think the intention with his character was supposed to be an overarching threat for John, but the way he acts doesn't really give off that effect. I think he tries a bit too hard looking good for the camera, which, okay, yeah, he looks great, but I'm not a 15-year-old girl from the 70s, okay? Stop trying to seduce me. And just like Jack Black, he's also not in the film a bunch. The third act race that he's in doesn't really help him in this ranking either. He doesn't even really act during his scenes. More of just like sitting there looking handsome. Okay, maybe it's working, but that's all he's good at in this movie. For that, he gets a C tier. Speaking of C, do you know what's right next to it? B. And do you know what starts with the letter B? Brad Pitt. Okay, that transition was pretty terrible. Brad Pitt has to be one of my favorite actors. He's charming, a good guy, and one of my favorite things, not typecasted. He has played a bunch of different roles, such as being a violent terrorist in Fight Club, a Greek legend in Troy, a baseball recruiter in Moneyball, and my personal favorite, a homeless man who beats up multiple demographics on a train in Japan. Please watch Bullet Train, it's really good. But before those roles, Brad Pitt was Dwight Ingalls. Ingalls? His name is Dwight, and he's a high school student from the 1989 slasher Cutting Class. Guys, I'ma be real here. I don't watch horror films. I think that almost all of them are bad, and the ones that are actually good, I'm too scared to see. And I think that the worst subgenre of horror is slashers. Now, I'm not trying to bash on this genre of film. If you like slashers, more power to you. There's actually a lot to like about them. However, for me at least, they're pretty dumb, and none are dumber than Cutting Class. The plot of the movie circles around three main characters, Dwight, Paula, and Brian. Brian was recently released from a psych ward after killing his dad, and is just let back into school with no supervision or accommodation at all. And soon enough, someone dies. Oh no, who could it be? For the entire movie, I thought it was legit going to make you think that it's obviously Brian, but then tell you, oh no, it was Dwight the entire time. But nope, it was Brian. And actually, it took me off guard. I legitimately did not see that coming. And that made my experience worse. I was just pissed for the rest of the movie because it made me feel stupid. But anyway, it's a slasher, but school themed. What else can I really say about it? The plot is dumb, the acting's bad, it has all the slasher tropes, it's not good. I also watched this for free on YouTube, and it censored all the blood and nudity in it, which made it funnier and more watchable, so thank you, YouTube. Okay, let's talk about Brad now. Brad Pitt is the first actor on this list who has a leading role, and he does a very good job, I say. He plays a douchey boyfriend for a good sum of the movie, which I guess he plays it well. Honestly, I think any guy can play a role like that in a slasher, but further into the film, he actually gets a lot more emotionally dynamic, selling off rage and sorrow really well. He's even good in the fight scenes. In fact, his acting is so much better than everybody else's. He actively makes the movie worse because his acting makes everybody else look bad. As said before, the acting in this movie is not good. Like, every line is like said awkwardly, it has like the wrong emotion attached to it. It just doesn't seem natural. But Brad is the only one that has like any investment into his character, and it's honestly surprising. He's carrying this movie on his back, and for what reason? To get an A tier, that's what. I think the fact that his acting makes this movie look twice as bad for doing a good job lands him high in this ranking. The only thing holding him back from S tier is that some of his lines and delivery are kinda on the same level as everybody else's at times. It wasn't too prevalent, but it was definitely noticeable. To be fair though, if I was in this movie and just like an NPC or something, I would definitely be on the same level as everybody else. They're all literally me. And do you know who else is literally me? Ryan Gosling! Ryan Gosling has been the center of attention for quite a bit now. I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar with the memes, but because of those memes, there was a lot more interest surrounding his filmography, and a ton more people now know a lot of his roles. If you're one of those people, you probably know that his first theatrical role was Disney's Remember the Titans back in 2000, except nope! You're wrong! You see guys, I went deep into Ryan's Disney actor history and found that his first ever movie was a little Disney Channel original film called Frankenstein and Me from 1996. The film is about a kid named Earl and his little brother Larry. Earl has a big imagination and is obsessed with classic Hollywood monsters. You know, Dracula, the Mummy, werewolves, you get the gist. But Earl and Larry's favorite monster was Frankenstein. So much so that they dreamed of being scientists and making their own Frankenstein monster with their dad, who, fun fact, is played by Burt Reynolds. That's pretty cool. However, his dad passes away due to an ambiguous disease. That disease leaves Earl and Larry devastated and with no direction. But Earl finds new purpose in a wax figure of Frankenstein that he finds in a carnival. The wax figure falls out of a truck and Earl gets his hands on it. The whole rest of the movie is Earl and his friends recreating Frankenstein's lab, trying to bring the wax figure to life, and in spirit, keeping his dream and dad alive. And I have to give props to the movie. I thought it would go the classic Disney route and have them bring the wax figure to life, get into shenanigans, and somehow get in trouble with the police because that always happens for some reason, and then have some emotional climax. But no, at the end of the movie, the experiment doesn't work. Earl just comes to terms that his dad is really gone, but his dreams don't have to be. I actually really enjoyed this movie. It's free on YouTube if you want to check it out, and it has some radical 90s commercials included. But let's talk about me. I mean Ryan Gosling. Ryan plays Kenny, one of Earl's best friends, and acts as the voice of reason for Earl, constantly telling him, hey, maybe stealing piece of property from a carnival, trespassing in someone's property, and striking said property with lightning intentionally isn't such a good idea. I'm the one who makes the Frank monster. I feel like the frustrating thing about Ryan's acting in this movie is that he's perfectly average. He isn't better or worse than anyone else and doesn't distinguish his acting in the slightest. To the point where I don't really see a reason for his character to even exist in this movie. I know that he was only 16 when this movie came out, but I don't have sympathy for the younger man. He will receive my judgment, my verdict for him being C tier. Now, I can't in good conscience have Ryan Gosling on this list and not include his Hollywood match, Emma Stone. Emma Stone, I feel like, has only just started her career in stardom, with films like Poor Things, La La Land, Zombieland, Cruella, and even the Amazing Spider-Man duology. She has conquered a lot of different genres and roles, most of those mainly being from the 2010s, but her very first movie was in 2008 with the adult comedy Superbad. This is the first movie on this list that is, like, recognizable. I personally never seen it before, but hey, maybe it's gonna be one of my favorites. Yeah, it was alright. Like, I enjoyed it. I can see why everybody holds it to such a high standard in its comedy. It's not really my thing. Now, for the people that haven't seen this movie, here's, a synopsis. Superbad is basically about these three losers that go on a beer run, all in an effort to get laid before college. It follows them through the night as they get into more ridiculous situations and stuff. I think the most enjoyment I got from this film is that the two main characters are played by Jonah Hill and Michael Cera, and whenever they speak, I just think of Titan from Megamind and Scott Pilgrim arguing with each other.
You just sound like an idiot. You're not gonna be able to sleep with her, man.
No! Dude, I don't want to talk a lot of okay? But she's gonna be at the party, and she's gonna be drunk, and she likes me at least a little, enough to get with me. At the very least, I'll make out with her.
Okay, can you just get out of here and we'll talk about this later?
Evan, we're down 2 points.
Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
On to Emma now. She plays Jules, the main love interest for Seth. And I'ma be real here. She adds so much character to Jules. She could have gone the easy route and just be a responsible girl and just act like herself. But no, I personally think that she killed this one. She's charismatic, funny, and feels real. She makes Jules seem like a real person. Everybody else in this movie is a bit more exaggerated, borderline cartoonish, but Jules feels like a real person. And I think that's due to Emma's performance. However, I'm gonna give her a reluctant B tier, borderline A, mainly due to that pesky screen time. She's just not in the film that much, man, which is a real shame because I really liked her inclusion, but there really wasn't much to judge. So she's going to have to settle in B tier. Wow, Jack, that was a great selection so far. Who's gonna be next? Well, I'm gonna give you 3 seconds to guess. Ow! What? Wait, was that a hint? Sorry, I seem to have a bit of a habit beating dead horses with that joke. Will Smith, the man. I gotta say that even though that he hasn't completely escaped the slap allegations, he's still one of my favorite actors of all time. He has this energy and attitude to him that is so addicting to watch for me, but also having genuine heart in what he does, and is able to sell emotion incredibly well. A lot of people that like Will Smith, or just know Will Smith, know that his jump into stardom all started with the classic American sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But what some people may not know is that during the original run of that show, he made his first film debut in the 1992 drama Where the Day Takes You. If I were to describe the film is kind of like American Graffiti in terms of its narrative structure, where it doesn't really have a plot. The premise of the movie is following this group of runaways in Los Angeles, and all the different ways that they make money and get by. I actually like this movie. It's pretty sad and depressing, and I resonated with its message, where it's more of a PSA to parents and kids alike to show how tough it is when you run away from home. The film mainly centers around the leader of this group, King, and him accepting a new member, Heather, in which King plans to leave California with her to go to Dallas, which is safer, I guess. And since I actually like this movie, I'm not gonna spoil any more of it, but I will spoil the scenes with Will Smith in it. Will Smith plays Manny, an amputee who hangs with King, and I do have to say that this is a very odd choice on the caster's end. Here we have a guy that is pretty much the face of pop culture back in the 90s, and in his prime, I mind you, and you cast him as a legless panhandler. I don't know, man, it seems kind of weird to me. But I liked Manny. He was funny in all of his scenes, and showed that even though that he has a disability, he can still keep up and even outpace the rest of the group. However, since he was already pretty well known due to Fresh Prince, his inclusion is more of a cameo than an actual role that impacts the story. Will Smith is only in like what, 5% of the movie, and his inclusion is then completely cut after a pimp flips his wheelchair over and can't get back up. And even though that I liked Will Smith's energy in addition to the film, he really doesn't impact it in any meaningful way. If he had his own story, I might have bumped him up, but for how little he's in the film, I gotta have to give him a C tier. Keeping our toes in the 90s, let's talk about our next actor, Leonardo DiCaprio. Before Leo was the face of screenshot meme culture from the 2010s, and a guy that had a stranglehold over every 16-year-old girl in 1997 that watched the Titanic, you'd be surprised that his first ever movie was a 1991 sci-fi horror film called Critters 3. Guys, I'm gonna come a little closer. Come on. This movie is bad. Like, really bad. Not only is it the third installment to an already niche series, not only is it a direct-to-video film, it does the most unforgivable thing a movie can do. Be boring. The Critters franchise is something I never heard of until I made this video, and it's a bit of an enigma to me. Even though that the first Critters movie didn't do so well in the eyes of the critics, it still has 5 movies somehow. But what is this series about? Well, from what I can gather, Critters franchise is about these little aliens called Krites, I think that's how you say it. They don't say it in the movie. They can roll around like balls, have sharp teeth, and have paralyzing quills that they can shoot from their back. They can also reproduce very fast. For the sake of my sanity, I didn't watch Critters 1 or 2, and to be completely honest, after watching Critters 3, I really didn't think I needed to. Critters 3's plot is centered around this family coming back to their apartment from a camping trip, unknowingly picking up a critter along the way. The critter lays some eggs, kills some people, and multiplies, chasing our main characters up the apartment, and yes, this is the entire movie. Guys, let's be real here. This is just Gremlins. Critters was just made 2 years after Gremlins released, and watching this movie made it painfully clear that it was just a ripoff of the Gremlins. Both feature handcrafted puppets, both multiply very quickly, and both are goofy and mess around at times. They both even have one of their species get scarred to differentiate them from the rest of the crowd. But the thing with the Gremlins, and the thing that I think makes them work so well, is that they are a legitimate threat. These guys are bipedal, intelligent, and extremely cruel creatures. Even the way they multiply adds so much more tension throughout the movie because we know how easy it is. The critters, on the other hand, roll around, shoot their quills at you, and they fly at your face. You can easily catch them. Now, I just wanted to remind you that I haven't seen Critters 1 or 2. Maybe everything I just said was wrong, but Critters 3 just does such a bad job at it. And speaking of those previous movies, in Critters 3, there is a character that tells us the events of Critters 1 and 2, in the form of directly ripping scenes from those movies, which makes the pacing of the intro an absolute nightmare. But there are spaceships and explosions, and is that just a ball of them? And all I could think about throughout the rest of the movie after watching that was, wish I was watching that movie. Well, back to watching this. What the heck was I even talking about? Oh yeah, DiCaprio. Yeah, he's not very good. He plays Josh, the son of a very corrupt landlord, and it feels like he has no investment in this character at all. The movie has pretty bad acting all around, but Leo barely tries to stand out in the mediocrity. Like, kid, I get it. This movie is direct to video, but like, this is your first movie, man. Try a little bit. There's a point where his dad is killed, and he doesn't even look sad about it. Come on, man. No emotion at all that he's dead? Man, that hatred must have ran deep, huh? All of his lines are flat. He doesn't really, react by the, okay, admittedly bad horror, but it's still in his world. Like, please act like they're, dangerous. And he just looks like he doesn't want to be here. Congrats, Leo, you made our first D tier. I'm proud of you. Next one up is the man who indirectly/directly caused the whole balance of Hollywood to shift. The real origin point of the industry's craze on connected universes and multiverses. Robert Downey Jr. Since the collective consciousness of society sees Downey as Iron Man and nothing else, even Marvel's attempt to say otherwise kinda fails, it's hard to think that Robert isn't as typecasted as you might think. Yeah, he's consistently snarky, dang it! But he's played a variety of roles that still surprise me to this day, like Kirk Lazarus in Tropical Thunder, Lewis Strauss in Oppenheimer, himself in Sir... Wait, does that count? And Sherlock Holmes in Sherlock Holmes. Robert Downey Jr.'s first movie was the action romance of 1985, Tough Turf. In this movie, we follow Hiller, a high schooler moving from Connecticut to California, adjusting to his new life. However, he almost immediately gets into trouble with a local street gang, which just so happens to attend the same school as him. While there, he finds the girl of his dreams, Frankie, who, unfortunately for Hiller, is already dating the leader of said gang. Now Hiller has to fight his way to get the girl and save the day. This is a movie that I actually really liked. I would watch it again if I came around to it. It's a pretty basic story, but I'd recommend it. Now, onto Robert. Robert Downey Jr. plays Parker, Hiller's wisecracking friend who is just, oh my gosh, he's great. Even 40 years ago, he still has that iconic snarky attitude to him. As for his acting, he adds a lot to the film. I actually think that he gives this film some much needed character, because without him, I think that this film would have been a lot more generic and forgettable. Remember that this is the same year that we had The Boys Next Door, The Breakfast Club, and The freaking Goonies. Robert was awesome in this role. He was funny and super engaging. I was actually going to give him an S tier. And then the movie just drops him out of the plot in the middle of the movie. Like what? He's just not in there anymore. What the heck? He was like the best part. Well, I guess they did bring him back in the final fight. You know, to bring some dogs and get shot. I know that this is the fault of Robert. I mean, he was just working with a script, but it does take away more opportunities for me to see his acting skills. And unfortunately for him, that's going to dock him from a potential S tier to just an A tier. A fall from grace, I know, but you can blame Fritz Kursk for that. Jumping all the way from the 80s to the 2010s, we have another Disney Channel original, that being the classic girly teen movie from 2014, Zapped, starring Zendaya. Wait, wasn't Frenemies from 2012 Zendaya's first movie? Excellent observation, fellow viewer. You have proven yourself of being a huge nerd! Ho ho! Sound the alarm, got you good! Yeah, one thing about myself that I didn't tell you is that I'm an Omega level gaslighter. But yeah, you're completely right. I just totally overlooked that movie while I was making the script, so whoopsie. Just like Timothée Chalamet, I think it was only recently that Zendaya has been the talk of the town. With Dune, the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, and Challengers under her belt, it's kind of surprising that she came from the Disney Channel of all places. Guess we all start from somewhere. So, my friends, when I first mentioned this movie, said that they all thought it was a classic. And I was like, okay, I bet this movie will be slightly corny, it's gonna be a little bit dated, and I don't really meet its target audience, you know, being a Caucasian male in his 20s that lives in Texas, but I'm in for some good old classic Disney sitcom movie stuff. Yeah, this movie kind of sucks. And to really rub salt in the wound, I think Zendaya was the worst part of the movie. The story follows Zoe, a high schooler that has just been incorporated into a new family, with her mother remarrying. Zoe doesn't like her family that much, because of all the brotherly mayhem she has to endure. One day, her phone gets some kind of, like, electric enchantment, and now she can control the male brain to do whatever she wants. This premise, I actually don't mind. Yeah, it's weird and borderline sexist, but I can see this working. But what doesn't work is Zendaya being the main character. Zoe is an extremely awkward and quite honestly annoying teenager. She stumbles through every dialogue she's in. She also has that pretentious, I'm too good for this demeanor throughout the entire movie. Now, I would actually forgive this if she went mad with power and just absolutely became a villain in the story. That would have been entertaining, but unfortunately, I don't get entertaining. The movie doesn't let me have that. And her just being like super awkward, but also trying to be nice, but also being extremely selfish, just, it makes this movie so much more grueling to watch. In fact, every character is like that in this movie. All of them are characterized by just one word, just like modern Disney side characters. Glad to see that they're consistent. The only part of this movie that is worth watching is Spencer Boldman, my beloved. He's awesome in this film. Lab Rat sweet! So in conclusion, Zendaya's not that good. If she weren't the main character, I might have been a little bit more lenient, but for now, she will be laid in the bottom of D tier. Okay, now just ignore everything I just said about Zapped for this next statement. The 2010s were a pretty awesome year for movies. We got Inception, Grand Budapest Hotel, Megamind, The Joker, The Lego Movie, and 2012. Okay, that last one was a guilty pleasure, but still. And one of the most influential movie series to ever come out of that decade was The Hunger Games. And that's partially due to our next actress, Jennifer Lawrence. With revolutionary franchises under her belt like the Hunger Games series and the X-Men, it's hard to deny that she's become the standard for the strong female character archetype. That actually works, I mind you. But before that archetype was really popular, she played Tiff, one of the main character's friends in the 2008 indie film Garden Party. And guys, this might legitimately be one of the worst movies I've ever had the displeasure of seeing. Garden Party has the same narrative structure as American Graffiti and Where the Day Takes You, where there really isn't a plot, but just a bunch of individual stories that are all stitched together and call themselves a movie. But unlike those movies, it looks like everything is shot on an iPhone 3 and everyone is either a drug addict or a degenerate. The premise, in quotes, of this movie is that in Los Angeles there is a porn star, a weed creep, a landlord that sells said weed, a 2000s indie rock singer, and a professional gooner, and we all follow them in their personal lives. Now, partially, I get it. It's an indie film. It's gonna try to be all artsy-fartsy and stuff and, you know, be on a budget. But unlike Where the Day Takes You, where it takes these horrible situations and addictions that these people have and says something about them, Garden Party says nothing with its premise, which makes this film lack any reason to exist. What is the point of the degeneracy that I admittedly just skipped or just played Brawl Stars while it happened? None. There was no point. And speaking of no point, let's talk about Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence plays Tiff, one of April's, the porn star I mentioned, friends. And she is only in one scene. That's it. Nothing else. In fact, the only way I knew that her name was Tiff is that that's what it says on our coffee cup. The only acting she does is suggesting April sell her body for some quick cash, and then we never see her again. I don't really see a reason to dive in further. D tier. I can't believe I watched that entire movie for her not to be... You know what? She's going further down in D tier, just because she made me watch that movie and for her not to be in it. Keeping my rage in motion, let's talk about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Man, what happened to this guy? I feel like he was the most loved person on the planet. And then Black Adam came out and now everybody just hates him. I mean, I kinda agree with everyone. Having contracts that say that he can't lose and that he has to be the main character really shows how egocentric this guy is. I mean, he's the one that's really pushing for the production of the Moana remake, just so that he can play Maui again. And on the topic of his acting, he can only realistically play just one character, that character being himself. In my opinion, I think that he's actually a better voice actor than an actual actor, but that's just me. But onto his first movie, I had a feeling of which one was his first, but I didn't want to get my hopes up. He was a WWE star after all. He probably made some cameo in some movie in the 90s or so. Wait, hold on. Jason made his first theatrical debut in The Mummy Returns. Yes! Let's go! Guys, story time. I love the Mummy movies. Yes, there are things definitely wrong about it, but I think that plays to its strengths. It tries so hard to be Indiana Jones and fails. I love it. I actually rewatched the first Mummy movie for this review to recapture that magic. I would say that the first Mummy film, a little rough around the edges, but genuinely good. The second one, it's got some issues, but it's a good time. The third, I have no idea what the hell is happening anymore, but it's peak. I think I should probably talk about the movie now. The Mummy Returns is all about our main character, Rick O'Connell, as he tries to save his son from a mystic amulet belonging to the Scorpion King, which would kill him if daylight touches him. They have to get that amulet off and defeat the Scorpion King. I'm leaving out a lot of context for this movie, mainly because it builds off the first one, but also because I really enjoyed this series and hope you watch it as well. Anyway, let's talk about Dwayne. The Rock plays the main villain, honestly more like a main obstacle than a villain, the Scorpion King. And for anyone that has seen the movie or watched Corridor Crew, you are aware of the awful monstrosity that is the CGI Scorpion King. But here's the thing. I'm not counting that as acting. This is just a motion captured recreation of Dwayne's thumb-shaped head. He doesn't even voice act for it. The only acting he does is in an opening sequence, and yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. He doesn't do a single thing. All he does is scream, fight, not even well, I mind you, and eat a scorpion, which is honestly kind of metal, but you see where I'm getting at. It's the fact that this is mostly a WWE wrestler doing a cameo appearance in a blockbuster. It's not a really great showcase of his acting, so with a light heart, I'm putting him in D tier for WWE. Doesn't compensate for poor acting. Now we have our last actor, who is probably the least known out of all these talented people, mainly because the demographic of my audience probably never watched anything that isn't animated. Don't worry, I'm one of those people too. The actress in question being Julia Roberts. Again, you probably aren't too familiar with Julia, mainly because, well, I wasn't too familiar with her either. She's known from the Ocean series and Pretty Woman. She also plays the mom in Wonder, which oddly enough is where I recognize her the most. From looking at her filmography, her specialties are romance and drama films, and that dates back all the way to her first film, Mystic Pizza. Funny story, while I was working on this video, I mentioned that Julia Roberts' first movie was Mystic Pizza, and then my mom's ears perked up like a dog, and then she started telling me how amazing the movie was. And then I said, do you think I'd like it? I'm not a romance guy. Well, I'm not a romance movie guy. For some weird reason, I always liked romance subplots, even as a kid. It was strange, but I never really experienced the genre to its fullest. But I like broadening my horizon, so I went into this film with an open mind. And I loved it! Holy crap, this was genuinely really good! Do I like romance now? Well, that's something to figure out later. The story follows three sisters, Kat, Daisy, and Jojo. Hey, no, get out of here! They all work in a family pizzeria in Mystic, Connecticut, and all have different relationships with three different guys. Kat falls in love with her client after being hired by him to babysit his daughter. Daisy falls in love with a wealthy man who hates his family, and Jojo doesn't know how to commit to her fiancé. All of them have to navigate through their relationships, and is genuinely super engaging. I want the best for all these people, but there are underlying issues with each of their relationships. Kat is in love with someone that is already married. Daisy is being used by her boyfriend to get back at his family, and Jojo seemingly only loves her fiancé for just his body. And all these situations are messy. But no matter what kind of heartbreak they go through, no matter how much baggage they carry with them, they can all let it out on each other. The sisterhood and relationship between these three siblings are the best part of this movie. I highly recommend Mystic Pizza. It's a great watch. Now let's talk about Julia Roberts. Julia plays Daisy, the one who dates the rich boy, and she has to be my favorite character in the film. And that's saying something. With such a strong cast of characters and actors, there's a lot of pressure being one of the leads, and I think Julia nails it. Daisy is the most rowdy and tomboyish sister, but feels so real in her role. Daisy's affection towards her sisters and anger with her life and herself is so beautifully drawn out by Julia. I can't see anyone else filling in this role except for her. She was amazing in this role, enough to get an S tier from me. Please go watch Mystic Pizza, I promise you won't regret it. And there you have it, 12 actors and actresses ranked by their very first role. I had a ton of fun making this video, but like the foreign commercials video, it's probably not gonna do so well viewership wise. And again, that's okay. Like some of these actors, I'm definitely a bit typecasted myself, being an anime and manga YouTuber, which yes, are things I like, but you know, like talking about other things as well. But that's not the fault of you guys. I just want to let you know. We'll just have to see as time goes forward how this is going to work. But until then, thank you so much for watching. Comment below if you want more of this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Hi guys, thank you so much for watching. This is the first ever end card I've ever made, so hopefully I do everything right. This is completely non-scripted. I just basically wanted to say that with new things happening in my life, I'm about to move out of my house, so videos might get a little bit shorter, or maybe they'll be like a little less like developed, or not as edited, or something like that. I just wanted to let you guys know. I do have a few big projects in the works, but in the meantime, as I'm moving and going to start school, just letting you know that things are going to be a little bit more sparse. But with that, I do highly recommend that you check out my Instagram account. I'll be able to post more regularly on that account. I'm currently doing a little series where I'm reviewing each episode of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, so if you want to watch that, you can go ahead and go on there. If you can give me a follow, that'd be awesome. You'll also get to see some behind the scenes stuff, so you know, you just know that I'm still alive at the very least. I also have an open email now, so if you guys want to send me fan art like this one right here, made by Canadian Turtle, it's awesome. You can send it to that email. I am pretty responsive, so you should be getting a response from me. Well, with that guys, that's basically all I wanted to say. Hope you have a great day, and yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys later.